Hello everybody, I'm Alfred and you're listening to Alfred's daily Q&A live stream podcast. This is a live stream Q&A that is also packaged as a podcast for posterity, so you can always reference it and you can always view an archive of everything that was said in a podcast format. You can at any moment in time post your questions in the comment section in this live or in past lives. Then in case it is not actually at the time I'm shooting a live, you look at the past live, any comment you post, I would be answering it in future lives. That being said, I would like to talk about several things. First of all, the Trump situation with the Epstein files. Sorry, a plane is going over my head, so I have to wait a bit for the plane to fly past so the sound will not disturb. Okay, so the plane has flown far enough. For those of you who do not know, I'm in Port Harcourt, and where I'm staying, I'm obviously not going to give you the location, but the flight paths apparently going to the Port Harcourt airports, planes fly over the part of Port Harcourt I'm staying, for them to get to the airports. Probably not all routes, but apparently a somewhat busy routes. And it's at night that I'm shooting this. This is actually 2:58 a.m. in Nigeria. So it's super early in the morning, but I'm often awake. I wake up around 11:58 or 11:30 p.m. So by 12 to 5 I'm active. I can do creative stuff. So when others are sleeping, I'm working. And then it just more about that later. That is not what I want to address in this live stream. Anyway, I'd like to talk about the Trump and the Epstein file situation. Now, it's a shame that Trump was attacking his fan base. The news just kept on growing. It went from what he said with Pam Bondi injecting and saying, are people still talking about the Epstein files? Yes, why won't we still talk about it? Why won't we still be interested in the Epstein files? Because the Epstein files represent something very important. It represents that they are an elite group of super rich people who are pedophiles. It represents that there are a lot of powerful people who are pedophiles, who are committing one of the most heinous crimes known to man. And they're allowed to get away with it. So there has to be a release of the Epstein list. The list has to be revealed. And of course, I've addressed previously about the list. You say, what kind of list is it? Is it a list of people Epstein did business with? Or is it a list of people that were on the flight log who went to Epstein Island? Because clearly it's crazy to think that every single person who went to Epstein Island went for the purpose of engaging in pedophilia, even though a lot of people go there for that. It's just like a place where people sell drugs. It's not everybody that passes that street that wants to buy drugs, but a lot of people who pass that street obviously went there to buy drugs. You get what I'm saying? So yes, on the flight logs, it's not everybody that is on the flight log that went to Epstein Island that is a pedo and went there to sleep with a little girl and all of that, or a little boy, whatever the case may be. But a lot of them are. It is the duty of the FBI and the investigative community to sort out who is guilty and who is innocent. Then release a list of who is guilty. It's that simple. Now, I know that Epstein himself will not obviously create a list of these are the list of all the people that are engaging in the criminal activity, or these are all the people that are engaging in whatever. And that being said, let me address something that people don't seem to know. In the business world, and in the political world. Just the same way there is there are traditions and there are cultures. Just like businesses have business cultures. For example, how you treat people. If a company is inviting a representative of another company, there is how they lodge the person, the hotel, all of that is part of the company expense. Picking up the person at the airport, using a limousine to pick up the person, all of this is money. The entertainment, the money that will be spent on food, all of this is something that's, is part of the business plan and how the business is structured. And in some countries, there is giving of bribe. They bribe representative of companies to get favor and for deals to pass. So, for example, if somebody is representing a big company or representing a government, they can give that person quote-unquote gifts. So those gifts is help to make favor so that the person will, on behalf of their government, favor this company rather than the other companies that are applying for the contract or whatever. So there's that. And part of the things that is also done in these meetings is sex work. There is a free sex work service, like, oh, you come to our country and then they provide prostitutes for the business traveler. That is a thing. They provide prostitutes for dignitaries, for high-level business travelers and all of that. And they will get, and it's all discreet and all of that. So it's high-level. These are supermodel type prostitutes and escorts that only deal with top clients that are very rich and politicians, and everything is kept discreet, and they are pimps, are the kind of pimps that will kill the girls if they talk. So there's no disclosure of, oh, this person did this and this person did that. But all these meetings, UN, all these people that go to the UN, all these people that go to all this World Economic Forum and all these kinds of meetings, there's an underbelly of when they invite people, part of the entertainment, or you go for the Olympics, there is an underbelly of prostitution. There is that involved. It's just like the same way somebody may go to, in certain countries, they will tell the person to stay a night costs $5,000. But to book for 1 week in that same hotel, the same quality of room, to stay there for 1 week cost $100. Why? Because if you are just staying there, it is $100. But that $5,000 per night is what is on the books. That is the way they'll write it legally on the books. But when that person goes into that hotel room, a prostitute will come and offer their services, and it's up to the person to accept or deny. And it will be like, oh, you get a free massage. It's part of the service. But the free massage is the legal way to put in prostitution. So that $5,000 is for the prostitute for the night. So it is not just a massage. It is a massage that will lead to sex. So that is what that is. So there is that business world. So that will also explain the commonality of what Epstein was doing, because this guy was networking with governments and businesses and companies. People may ask, what did Epstein do? You have to understand, on the high level of business, it is not about work. It is about investing and networking. I remember as a child, I watched one episode of the Flintstones where there was a double of Mr. Flintstone who was rich. But this guy just sat by his phone, and all he did is he will listen to people talk and say, I'll buy that. He was buying businesses. So it's about assessing businesses, buying up companies. Then with the profits from the companies and with deals with banks, you are buying more. So you're just buying companies and networking, buying companies and networking. That is a life. And when somebody lives that life, somebody that works a 9 to 5 cannot understand that life. So that is the highest level. When you think about Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the entrepreneur, the self-employed, and I'm talking about the cash flow quadrants. That's Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki talked about, the employee section of the cash flow quadrants, the self-employed section of the cash flow quadrants, and the entrepreneur side of the cash flow quadrants, and then the investor side of the cash flow quadrant. In the deeper high level section of the investor, now this is me adding based on observation. This is what I'm talking about, where it is all about you are buying up companies. It's a different kind of life. So you can do whatever, you can be traveling, can be jetting here and there, but all you are doing is your real work is to assess businesses, their strengths, their opportunities, understanding markets, and you are just buying up businesses and using the profits from buying up businesses to buy up more businesses. It's just like somebody who buys real estate. He buys real estate, then with the profits from the real estate, buys more real estate, and he's buying more properties, and also the bank is watching what he's doing, so he's getting more loans and building and buying complexes, buying malls, building malls, so it's a different structure. And this kind of thing, this kind of people, they don't put it out there and they don't brand themselves as public figures as this is what I do, so they could walk around like everyday people. But that being said, I'm just giving you a picture of what Epstein was doing and how that kind of thing will be now. So it's like providing the sex services in the island, so, but now included in the sex services is pedophilia, a lot of underage young girls. And keep in mind that the reality of Epstein is that the majority of the girls he did were in college. They were underage. But it is not like, to the best of my knowledge, based on what have been put forward, it's not like majority of them were children. But they were still underage. These were college girls that like to party and, and sometimes high school seniors, which is super underage. So it's still pedophilia, but it is not like it is children. So I'm just telling you, and these are the business travelers, and most of these people, it is a matter of having common sense to know that doesn't this girl look too young? But a lot of these business people and politicians, they are used to that kind of life. So part of the reason why it's important to release the Epstein files is because these people have not changed. You cannot put only Ghislaine Maxwell in prison, and her and Epstein are the only people that apparently have been charged with anything, that have had any legal repercussions from this whole thing. They cannot be the only ones because these people have not changed. Somebody who is addicted to something, whether or not the whatever this, if someone is addicted to buying cocaine, for example, and the spots where they are used to buying cocaine from shuts down, police raids it, it doesn't mean that person will stop buying cocaine and that person has stopped and you don't have to worry about that person. No, that person will look for somewhere else to buy cocaine. Those who are into pedophilia, those who have a taste, and these are people who have a lot of money, those who have a taste for pedophilia and that is what they are addicted to, that is their thing. All these people, they haven't stopped doing it. They have just found new locations to do it, and will be more secretive than ever, and will be more careful than they were with the Epstein situation. So that is why the Epstein files must be released. It's the duty of the Justice Department to look through and find out, okay, who are those who are associated with Epstein, and then who are those who actually, cases can be made against them that they actually also got sex, services from Epstein's whole business. Because if P. Diddy can be charged with what he's charged for, why is Epstein and the guy Ghislaine Maxwell, why is that left like that? It's crazy. The treatment that P. Diddy is given is what Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell should have been given, and more people actually brought to book. In the case of P. Diddy, we even have the situation where it is only P. Diddy that is charged for a RICO, which is crazy. And in the case of P. Diddy, it's like the cops raid a place where they are selling crack, and they arrest only one person, and they charge only one person, and they focus on only one person. If what P. Diddy did was wrong and all that, what about all those who did it with him? Was P. Diddy the only one at the party? Why is everybody else exempt? Why is it only on P. Diddy? So there's a lot of nonsense that we see with the justice system that needs to be corrected. And of course, in the case of Cassie, we know that Cassie is a devil. Cassie is worse than Diddy. All the things that they are accusing Diddy for, Cassie is worse. And this is the thing. One of the biggest problems with the American justice system is that when the American justice system wants a quote-unquote big fish, they will make deals with the small fish who committed crimes with the big fish and let the small fish go free as long as they help bring down the quote-unquote big fish. In other words, let's say somebody is the head of a mafia. They will allow somebody who worked under that person and was a hitman or a capone or whatever. They will do a deal with that person to bring down the overheld mafia boss. But they leave the little guy, they make a deal with the little guy and give him maybe 1 year or 6 months, or he goes scot-free, depending on how he twists things and he manipulates his way and does not associate himself with any direct crime for cooperating with the police. But guess what? These are two guilty people. It's crazy. So I believe a lot of that plays into the situation, because every single thing that PDD is accused of, Cassie can be accused of. A lot of those parties, now we know that Cassie organized the parties herself. There were parties that were organized by Diddy. There were parties that was organized by Cassie. And it shows you how much that Diddy trusted Cassie, and Cassie was part of the system, because she is using Puffy's money. She's using PDD's money to throw sex freak-offs. She was the one who called all the male prostitutes that slept with her. She was the one who called them. She was the one who handpicked them. And Diddy will sit back and watch. So all they were in it together. Why is Diddy guilty and Cassie the victim? How is she innocent? She was the one that orchestrated it, called which prostitutes, what male prostitutes she wants to sleep with, and was organizing this and that. She is as guilty. You cannot exempt, but this is the situation. And all the people, if the whole freak-off is criminal, why isn't everybody there arrested? All the celebrities. So we see an injustice, and that's the same thing we see with this Epstein situation. We cannot let all these people go free. A lot of celebrities, a lot of powerful people. And it shows the double standards of justice. But anyway, in an updated news on the Epstein file, because of the New York Times and the article that they put against Trump, suggesting that nonsense article, they made up a letter and said that President Trump sent Epstein a letter on his 50th birthday or something like that, and put some kind of crazy thing, which is crazy. Even the contents of the birthday card or whatever, that they claim that was written by Trump is crazy, because nobody talks like that. The whole thing was crazy, and Trump said he's going to sue. But because of things like that, and of course with the backlash with his own base, with Trump's own base, Trump has decided to go ahead and say that they should release the files and all the information, make it public. But keep in mind, that being said, it is not like the people who are guilty of pedophilia their names are going to be made public. They are just going to make a lot of access to the files, a lot of things that have to do with the Epstein case public. But I know that the list of people that actually engaged in pedophilia, with the Epstein situation, which is not going to be released. I know that for a fact, maybe I shouldn't say I know that for a fact, because that just too much. But I just believe that's the way they are going to play it. It's sad, but I just think that is the way they're just going to play it. So that being said, it made me want to remove my song "Man of the People." The earlier situation, it made me want to remove my song "Man of the People" from SoundOn. For those of you who do not know, SoundOn is like DistroKid, but it's owned by TikTok. The difference is that it is 100% free. Not necessarily, but you don't pay a yearly fee like DistroKid. However, they are very selective with what they allow you to post and how your song should be formatted and all of that. And in addition to that, after the first year, they take 10% of all proceeds from non-TikTok and ByteDance owned platforms. So your Spotify, your Apple, all of that, they are taking 10% of the royalties, but you own the rights to everything. And at any time you can terminate the contracts, And that being said, it's important. You actually have to sign your signature and verify your identity with sound on. When you are signing up, it's different from the DistroKid and the TuneCore where you just play and upload content. No, you have to send them your ID card. You scan and post your ID card to them. They look at it and they verify your passport number or whatever, and you have to sign your signature on an e-documents. You have to sign your signature. They have to see all that. So it's different. So it's actually a contract that you should read. And apparently, because I didn't really read so much of it, I discovered the hard way that when you post a song through sound on, you cannot take it down till after 6 months, no matter what. So I wanted to take down one of the people, and that's when I found out. And you have to wait for correspondence. You email them, they email you back. So that's where I found out that in the contract I didn't read, because the thing that concerned me about the contract is, do I own the publishing? Am I giving up the publishing right? Do I own the masters? And that was my main concern. I looked at the fact that they are going to be taking 10% of royalties, but whatever. What I'm concerned about is that I own the masters and I own the publishing right, so I do own that. However, you cannot take down a song until after 6 months, but that is done so that it can generate enough revenue for them to take something from the royalties. So that is smart business on their part. Then that being said, we need to talk also about Trump's problem with his health. He had been diagnosed with a health problem where blood in his leg is not flowing back to his heart and all of that, and it has created swelling in his leg and all of that. So there are problems with his veins. I would say all he has to do is participate in healing streams. Right now, healing streams is on, so all he has to do is participate. That is a simple problem to fix. Participate in healing streams, stream it, watch it online and participate, and you get your healing. Then that being said, when it comes to my plans regarding webcomics, I'm planning on going heavy with it. I should just close my eyes and just go ahead and not wait for everything to be too perfect, not wait for the comics to be too perfect, and just go ahead with it. So that's what I'll be doing when it comes to the webcomics, and I'll do different things. One of the strategies I plan to do is create a situation where I can create a strip that will be a container for several things that I do. So I will create a strip that showcases different comics that I have in the works, and then also package in things that are relevant. So it's just basically memes, because when you look at the reality, a meme is basically a one-panel comic strip. You have to understand, in the comic book world, a 3-panel comic strip is like 3 panels on a strip, like the ones you see in the newspaper, the Calvin and Hobbes. Sometimes there are 3 panels or 4 panels, 4 different panels. But Sunday strips is full page, so it contains more panels. But on a regular daily distance, like the For Better For Worse comic strip, you see the panels 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3, 4, and it is done in such a way it is done for a joke. So it is like at the end is the punchline, so it starts with the setting up the joke in the first panel. The second panel is for the the setup, and then the third panel is for the punchline. Sometimes you can do it 4 panels where it is you introduce the situation, you set up the joke, the punchline, then you can create an after the punchline. After the punchline is delivered, how is the reaction after the punchline is shown. So that is the format for comic strips, and that is something people should know, if you are interested in comic strips and all of that. But a 1-page strip is just traditionally has been just 1 page, where the whole joke is in 1 page. Like they show a politician doing something, it is just 1 picture, 1 drawing with just 1 text. That the page, everything is in the joke. The joke is just in 1 panel. So there are certain strips that know how to do it well, but that is the origin of a meme. That is basically what a meme is. And people need to understand certain things that are new are not really new. It's just like skits. Today we have all these 1 minute skits and less than 5 minute skits that a lot of content creators are making, the Lele Pons and all of them. But if you go way back before the internet, there was a show called Love American Style. If you watch Love American Style, in between there are standalone skits that are actually 1 minute long, and an individual standing joke. And this was the era of Ashy Comics, when Ashy was also on the comics was big. This was probably the 30s or the 40s, or one of those times. Love American Style. If you can search for it on YouTube, at the end of in between the shows there are skits. So that is the first time where you can see an individual standalone skit, which is a completely different packaging of a video joke, like we have of skits of today. So the point is that a lot of things we do today were always done, but were done in a different format, or somebody else did it. If you look back, you will see that it's the idea is not as original as it was. So that is that. I plan on going heavy with webcomics, and I'll be posting to Webtoons and of course to my own website, Alfred.vip. And I also plan to bring back podcasting. For those of you who do not know, with my history with podcasting, I was podcasting way back when I used to call it online radio shows, and post it on Meta Cafe. This was the early days of the internet. There was no smartphones. There were no YouTube. It was Meta Cafe. Meta Cafe was a software you downloaded on your laptop. And this was the era of LimeWire and Napster. Meta Cafe let people post. You could post software, you could post a lot of things and share it, and create your profile and share things, and people will just share things who downloaded the Meta Cafe software. But I think Meta Cafe still exists, but now it's kind of like a video platform, metacafe.com, where you can post videos and all that. Those were the days of the cyber cafe. So on Meta Cafe, I created a radio show called Skaters, something for skaters, for people who skate, because I'm very interested in that. So the idea was someday I will have my own radio show. This was way back. So I packaged, broadcast, and I said, let me preach the gospel to those who are into skating. So I will talk about skating world and all of that, and mix it with the gospel, and package all of that as a radio show. That is what I called it then. Since it was only online, it was like, so one day I'll get my own radio station, and it will be one of the shows on the radio station. So it was a thing of it. So I'll package it and put it out on Meta Cafe. So that was that. But it created a situation where I was conscious about segmenting and creating niches for different show episodes. Later, podcasting came out, Steve Jobs, with the iPhone and all of that, specifically with the iPod. That is when podcasting came out, when he did the iPod. Then later on the iPhone, and then, podcasting became a thing. It actually became big when people like Joe Rogan got that deal. That is when celebrities started jumping on podcasting. But before, it was just for people who weren't celebrities, or people who didn't have the big names, the big brands, and where they didn't have the access to TV and all of that. So we will do our own things through podcasting. And I know there was something called Holy Culture Radio Show. That was one of my favorite shows that time. To listen to Christian hip hop. That was the only place where you get. They will package it like it was a radio show. They will put different hip hop. You could submit your own rap songs. And the person will talk. They will talk around it, and all of that. So that era of podcasting. That was big. It also brought back to a degree old time radio, because I know even Scooby-Doo, when podcasting first started, being big under Steve Jobs. This was when Steve Jobs made it. I was talking about when it was just me posting on Meta Cafe, and people have been doing that before me. The packaging of radio shows for the internet. But I'm just showing you how way back it was with me. But when Steve Jobs created and packaged it as podcasting and, making it available through iTunes, creating a software for audio content to go out, and packaged in that manner. When Steve Jobs did that, that was that first time. Preachers, all the churches started having their own podcasts. Some churches no longer have their own podcasts, but some churches still do. And, even big companies like Cartoon Network, we have his own podcast. They started their own podcast. They even started their Scooby-Doo radio, online radio. It was like the rebirth of the old-time radio. So there was a specific audio-only Scooby-Doo episodes that were released in audio podcast formats for the Scooby-Doo podcasts. So only those who had that software or downloaded it them still know about it or ever got to listen to those particular episodes. They were specifically made for audio only. So that is how it was, and there were video podcasts later. Cartoon Network had several where they would interview creators like Man of Action who made and created Ben 10. So those kinds of things that were rare, and that is what I was posting on YouTube. That in those days I didn't post myself on YouTube, which I know now it's a mistake, but that time YouTube was not even owned by Google. And you will see some few people who will post, like the early OG guys, post on YouTube, and it's like, why do these people think of themselves as celebrities? So there will be some people that will even come and see, like, who are making content on YouTube would say, that time being a YouTuber was not really a word, and it was like, what do you do? Nobody wanted to say I post content on YouTube. It was looked down on. It was frowned upon. Like, what do you do? Like, is that a job? And this was before monetization. There was no monetization, so everybody was posting out of love and out of fame, or they had something to say they wanted people to hear. So that's what it was all about. And there was all this complicated system of sponsorships was not available in those days. So it was just people who just wanted to be seen or had something to say. I wanted to preach the gospel, so that's why I got involved. But on my own YouTube, I would just post other stuff that I got from elsewhere. That time YouTube was just a smorgasbord of people reposting stuff that they read from DVDs and VCDs. You will see 30 different people you post the same in sync songs. One recorded from MTV, another person recorded it from a different channel, and all of that. So it is just to say that was how it was before there was a crackdown on music copyrights and all of that, and then Google also bought YouTube. So all of those things, helped to change the whole situation to what we have it today. So that being said, I'll be coming back with podcasting, but I'll be doing different niche shows. I used to do that before. There was different on to when I come out with it again, you would see how it was. I broke down every demographic and created a podcast for every single demographic, based on occupation, based on interest, based on loves and all of that. So I'll bring that back, so that being said, that is coming back. Then lastly, I want to talk about the Gen Z stare, the phenomenon. The Gen Z stare, which is just basically Gen Z folks staring blankly at the camera, staring blankly at people when they are asked questions. That is just evidence of poor parenting, and passing down teachings and manners and being respectful. There's a disconnect. There's a disconnect between the older generation and the new generation on what is respectful, on how to be respectful, how to be a good human. That you feel somebody is ignorant or somebody should know something they are asking you, doesn't mean you should look at them with a blank stare like there's something happened. Like if you are booting or you're processing, you're looking at them like, really, like are you that dumb and all that, just blankly, quietly looking at them, So that is just disrespectful, and it's a show lack of manners and, poor parenting. So those are things that we need to create solutions to, and I'm talking to Christians and those who rock with me, Alfred, because we are solution providers. We look out at the problems of the world and seek to solve them. So that being said, I've said a lot, quite a lot. I'll end the stream here, the live stream here. So thank you for joining me with the live stream, and God bless you. Say this prayer audibly if you have not given your heart to Jesus Christ. Dear God, I believe in my heart that Jesus Christ the Son of God, came, died, and was raised from the dead to save me. I confess Him, Lord, over my life, and ask You to give me Your Holy Spirit to live within me. I receive Your Spirit by faith, and thank You for I am now born again. In Jesus' name, amen. If you just prayed that prayer, congratulations, you're now a Christian. Go to alfred.vip and get resources that will help you with your work with God.